Hello and welcome to today's coaching Q&A call. I am Wendy Greer with Learning Strategies and MINDTRX, and I'm going to be leading our event today. I am going to share a couple of tools before we get into the questions, because we did have a few, that I have found to be incredibly useful in working with other people and with working with yourself. They're standalone tools that I've used for many years, but they can really, really enhance your paraliminal use. So I want to share what they are and then how you might want to incorporate these. I think it'd be pretty clear, from a totally pragmatic, everyday using only these tools, but I want to tell you how I integrate them into my paraliminal use. So, like everybody, I have had some challenging people in my life. They show up regularly. I know they're growth opportunities, but sometimes they're a little challenging. And it's particularly challenging when they're family members, because, some people you can set a boundary and say, okay, I'm done. I need to walk away from this. I don't need any further contact. But family members, you can't do that. And so I understand where a lot of people get sort of stuck in dynamics that are not very conducive to expansion, light, and harmony. So I had an incident where, or an instance where I had been dealing with something chronic within the context of the family. Had somebody in the family who was very manipulative and very perceptive on knowing where they could needle you and get you going and get your goat. And it wasn't just me; it was a lot of people. It was pretty broad scope, and it had accelerated and exacerbated beyond reasonable levels as far as most people were concerned. And I'm a solutions person. I like to find things that will work. And so I was doing releasing. I wasn't familiar with EFT then, but I was doing morning pages. I was doing everything I could think of. And I happened to come across a book by Gerald Jampolsky called Teach Only Love. And I can't even remember how this came to me, but Jerry Jampolsky was a traditionally trained psychologist, a psychiatrist, actually, a very traditional practice, went through a rough time in his life, and happened to stumble across the Course in Miracles, which is a program that works with your spiritual center and has a couple of basic premises. One is that we are all sparks off the same divine flame, and the other is that there are two primary emotions. There is love and there is fear, and you can't operate from both synchronously. You're either coming from one or the other. So this was a whole different way of looking at this. And what he actually ended up doing was incorporating it into his mainstream practice. So he called it spiritual psychology, which I think is just awesome from a traditionally trained psychiatrist. And so what he was doing was that he was remembering to tell people and remind people that with these two emotions of love or fear, the love is our natural inclination, and then fear is manufactured by the brain, by the thoughts, by what goes on here, which then engenders the tension, the anxiety, and the fear and paranoia. So what we ideally would learn to do is to let go of the fear, practice forgiveness by seeing everyone, including ourselves, as being blameless and guiltless and deserving of all good. So in that context, of course, this relationship that was driving me crazy was, okay, this is clearly not love, this is fear. What's the fear here? What's going on behind the scenes? And I tell you, the whole perspective changed, because I was no longer looking at the problem and expecting the next attack. It was like, what has to be true in this person's world for this to be happening? What do they have to be thinking? What do they have to perceive as being as going on, that they would think this is an appropriate way to behave? And so where are they operating from? Well, a couple things that happen here is, first of all, I stepped immediately into a compassionate state. And compassion is one of my core values, which is why this relationship was so frustrating, because I was so resentful and getting so angry at being treated this way and seeing it happening broad scope. So it put me in the place of compassion. It detached me from the ugly behavior. It gave me this space. And from there, I could discern what the alternatives might be. And I could also see why what was happening, that there was a fear there was a basic insecurity, there was an ego issue. So I sort of got this bird's eye view, and I could have compassion toward this person, even though they were constantly striking out and trying to get people and really, sort of gouge, because I was coming from a place of, okay, this is fear. This is fear. How horrible must it be to be stuck in that box? How horrible must it be to think that this is the way to behave? How horrible must it be? So if I can embrace that, if I can be compassionate, if I can be open and light filled, as I would hope to be in all circumstances, even this circumstance, then I'm doing what I can do to shift the perspective. And it really made me feel empowered that I was no longer compromising what I was. I was no longer at the beck and call of this, or it's not even, that's not quite the term, but I was no longer being severely influenced by this person that was so manipulative. It was just, and it was just so unpleasant to be a part of it. So I think this tool can be used in any relationship. And I want to give you one thought. This there's a saying that this saying, every time I say it, it has this incredible zing to it. It's not attributed to anybody in particular, but it sums up what I was just talking about. I'm sure this is from one of the pearls of wisdom from the Sufi tradition or one of the ancient mystic schools. But anyway, the saying is, fear knocked on the door, love answered, and no one was there. I just, it gives me goosebumps. It's just so profound. If love is there, if the light is there, the darkness can't coexist, and it's not there. So if love answers the door, the fear isn't there. So I think that's just so profound. So I want to bring this into the paraliminal world. Generally, when somebody's either looking to enhance a relationship, or if they've got a challenging relationship that they're trying to somehow modulate into a more meaningful and productive and mutually beneficial relationship, we would start with positive relationships, which is create strong, beneficial, and lasting relationships. That is a great place to start. But with this insight of fear or love, and really sort of putting yourself in the other person's shoes, you can gain a whole new perspective and a whole new level of connecting and being there with and for that person. So self-love, because if you love yourself, if you are living in the light, if you're in the upper energy centers, they always say if you can stay in the upper energy centers, if you sink, you go down no lower than heart. So if you're in those upper energy centers, if you're in self-love, that fear there's no chinks for it to enter. So you can stand there and hold the light, and hopefully eventually this person will see it. So self-love, fresh start, and that was self-love. Fresh start and letting go. I want to talk about these two together for a minute. A lot of people think these are very similar. I mean, they're coming from a similar perspective, but there's entirely different undertone to them. Fresh start is knowing that every minute of every day, every second of every day is an opportunity to start anew. However, if you have not let go of the stuck states, if you have not taken a look to see what's going on, where you're feeling jammed up, where you're not in a place of love, where you might be in fear, where you might be in contraction, then even though you have a fresh start, you don't have the space to really jump with it. You're still carrying all the rocks, because you haven't let go of the rocks. You haven't let go of the loads, the burdens. So that's why those two in tandem, and the letting go, if you're using fresh start and you're feeling like you're not making headway, you might use the letting go first, because it really does open the space. It clears some room for that new perspective and that fresh start. So I'm sure you can see what I mean here. If you know this person is operating from fear, and you go into that circumstance from love and light, then you are not a receptor for the fear. They almost lose their target, because it just rolls off, and then you have the opportunity to shift the whole paradigm. So that's one of them. That love and fear was just really big for me, and it's made such a difference. And I've shared it with a lot of people with really challenging or downright dysfunctional relationships, and it can make such a difference, because when your perspective changes, the whole shebang shifts. So the other one I want to share, and this is more of an interior job, but I worked with a meditation teacher for some length, and what I loved was the way she distilled things. I'm very much of a pragmatist. I have to be able to take it out into the world. I want real world tools, and that's one of the reasons I love paraliminals so much, because they're so immediately converted into what you can use in your life. But her main premise is very aligned with the love and fear, is there are two states. There's expansion and there's contraction. If you're expanded, you're light-filled, you're joyous, you're living in harmony and serenity, you're resourceful, you're very proactive, and you're living in a joyful place. If you're contracted, you're in the dark. You're fearful, you're paranoid, you're anxious, you're not too sure you're safe. There's a safety security issue, and so you can be anywhere in this range between the contracted and the open, but you have a choice on which one you embrace. And so, and what I look at this as is almost like having an internal GPS. So when you're contracted and you find you're going through your day and you're getting more and more tight and your shoulders are clenched up and you're just feeling really, the world is out to get you. It's like the universe is going, hey, notice you're feeling a little tied up there, a little bound up. Might wonder where you can consider the path you're walking. Where's your North Star? Have you got your North Star is back there and you're going this way. So it's such a great pragmatic tool, because anytime you're feeling cut off and contracted and in that space of just no options, you're in a corner, expansion is the other choice, just as in love and fear. So for this topic, this is one of the reasons that when people are really stuck, I really like the joy, I think, is just wonderful, because when you're in a state of joy, it's like life bubbles up through you, and it just, there's no way that you can be contracted and be in a joyous state. So joy, youthful vitality. As I said last time, I've got grandkids, and I tell you, it's a blast to spend time with kids. I wish we could get preschools and senior centers together, because I think they'd feed each other so well. So youthful vitality, because when you're in the flow and life is a miracle, and every day is a new adventure, you're expanded. You're in an expanded, light-filled place. And gratitude, because gratitude makes you tune into what is working in your world. Gratitude is a great one, because we did that whole I did that little spiel about gratitude and how powerful it can be, because when you're focused on what is working, and even if you have to dig deep for something to be grateful for, just that orientation moves you toward expansion, moves you toward love, and it will help you to maintain that state. So these are such great course correction tools. I just really wanted to share those with you. The love and fear can have such a profound impact on good relationships as well, but on challenging ones where you just you just are feeling bombarded, and parents of children that have challenges, you can get sucked into this downward spiral, and you start participating in the fear as well. So if you can stay in love and expansion, it's all for the good. So that's, I think, what I wanted to say on those topics. And then we did have some questions. So first one, I can't sleep chronic for 8.5 years. Whoa, that would be challenging. And in the last 2.5, I've developed breast cancer. How would this help me, as I've been tapping and listening to other music, which is supposed to help, but hasn't yet? Would this help me? I can't make any medical Debbie, I can't make any medical prognostications. However, over the years, I've noticed several things. Body, mind, and spirit are inextricably linked. If one shifts, the others are going to shift as well. So if body, mind, and spirit are linked, and one of them is manifesting dis-ease, as in lack of flow, lack of ease in the body, the mind, or the spirit, there's going to be ramifications. Paraliminals are awesome for working with that. I don't know what, there are many paths to the same destination, but what you're using sound like great tools. But the reason paraliminals are so incredible is you work a lot with your conscious mind, but your other than conscious is there behind the scenes all the time. All your memories, all your inner knowing, you're connecting to the quantum field, the emptiness source, whatever, your divinity, whatever you want to call it. So paraliminals are just incredible for accessing that greater power that that's always surrounding us, all that energy, that's always this infinite pool of energy. And we, there's that saying, you can go to the ocean, you can go with a dropper, you can go with a bucket, you can go with a tanker truck. The ocean doesn't care. You take as much as you want. That's what energy is like. So the paraliminals remind you of your capacity. So there were several components to this. So I was going to mention a couple of things. If you're having trouble sleeping, deep relaxation before, and it might be mid-afternoon maybe, so you're starting to wind down. I'm sure you've, checked into the blue light blockers and the, cutting off caffeine and all the physiological stuff. But deep relaxation, some people use deep relaxation even right before sleep, but since we release the sleep deeply, wake, refreshed, I'd probably use that immediately before bedtime. From the perspective of health, we have, anything can be used and adapted, but there's several that I would definitely consider. Perfect health, because that reminds you of what I was just saying. You have the blueprint for perfect health. It's just a little awry. It's not quite lined up. So you need to align yourself with that blueprint you already have. 5 elements healing. One of the courses I coach is feng shui, and I when I first started coaching it, 5 elements is huge in feng shui, because what you're looking for is a balance in your physical environment. Anytime you go into a room that feels good, I don't think there's been any exceptions where the elements haven't been balanced. They're all represented and they're in proportion. So 5 elements healing would be good. If you're undergoing traditional treatment as well and you're feeling de-energized, then the recover and re-energize would be good. And again, the youthful vitality, because that one is about really tuning into that infinite supply that's around you. And it's an ocean we can dip into anytime we want, and we deprive ourselves. So those are the paraliminals I would use. I would again say, many roads to the same destination, but you're on track, but paraliminals could definitely help. As I said, no medical claims, but just to make you a more balanced and a very whole, complete. You're already complete, but you've forgotten that you're complete. So it's that reminder of your divinity, of that internal, never-ending completeness. So I would encourage you to do that. My mind tends to wander a lot when I'm listening to the paraliminals, so I just want to know if they will still be effective when this happens. Absolutely. It's really funny because monkey mind is the biggest challenge for people when they meditate. And I think paraliminals tend to remove monkey mind because you have something you're listening to. So it tends to, instead of you doing your laundry list, you're sort of dipping in and out of the messages. But if your mind is wandering, that's your conscious mind, you're other than conscious. If you set a clear intention, it doesn't matter what's going on around you or where your mind is wandering. If it's bothering you, then you may not be hearing the messages that are coming through. I had a meditation teacher that used to joke with me because I'm got a pretty active intellect. She would say, Wendy, tell it to go to the back of the bus. Just tell it to go to the back of the bus. And if it doesn't behave itself, tell it to get off. So yeah, don't worry. You'll still benefit. And if it's bothering you, build into your intention. One other thing too, that's effective for monkey mind. Tell your other than your conscious mind before you go to listen. If it is in fact a list of things you need to do, write them down. So you've physically written them down. Tell your conscious mind, I got it. I'll deal with that when I'm done with the paraliminal. Right now, I'd like you to step aside because I'm going to work with this. But if you tell your other than your conscious mind before you go to do the paraliminal, I'm taking a break here. I want my other than conscious and the wisdom that resides there to come to the surface, and just ask it to step aside just for 20, 22, 24 minutes. And then you can come back on board. It's amazing if we just make a clear request how the universe and our own internal mechanisms comply. So yeah, you'll still benefit, but if it's bothering you, then I would use one of those 2 techniques. And then we had one here that I love. I hear this a lot. How do we manage competing goals? When I try to focus on doing better in one area, all the others, which are also important, get neglected even more. Then I try to address them, but feel like I'm getting nowhere with my original goal. For example, I need to lose weight, do better with money, tidy up the house more, and become more organized, as well as become more assertive. Yes, I will be using a lot of paraliminals, but I would appreciate help with how to go about it when I'm struggling in a lot of areas. Okay, couple things. When somebody has multiple goals, I find that 1 or 2, maybe 3 is probably the max you can work on at one time. What happens if you take on too many goals is you're so diversified and you're so spread out that you don't do any of them well. And so, and the way I generally suggest that you select which ones you're going to work on are one of 2 things. Either you absolutely know it's highest priority. Like if you got a serious health compromise, that's high priority because you may not be here to deal with all the other goals if you don't take care of the health priority. So, if you're going to lose your house and you've got some other peripheral goals that aren't real high priority, then you're probably going to want to work on your finances because you need to ideally have somewhere to live, that roof over your head. So that would be one. The other is some goals. If you achieve that goal, there's a trickle effect and they sort of pull everything along with you. So one of my questions for you on a personal level would be, like you mentioned, the losing weight. So how do you feel about what you feel is the excess weight? Is that impacting every area? Is it impacting your self-esteem? Is it impacting, how you approach your colleagues at work? How much impact is that having on your life? Because if that's having a big impact, then that might be high priority, and until you can sort of get a handle on that, and then you might move to some of the others. Another thing that I notice here is often when you're working on one goal, just because you're focusing on that one does not mean the others don't move in tandem. Often the entire whatever you've got going shifts along with it. So when you're advancing in one area, you're advancing in another. So be aware of that too. One other technique I'd like to share with you is from Jack Canfield's Effortless Success course. I think he has it in his Success Principles as well, but he suggests for people that are feeling really diversified, doing what he calls an irritations list. And you go through your home, your workplace, everything in your life, and you make a list of everything that's aggravating the heck out of you. And then you decide whether you're going to do it, you're going to dump it, or you're going to delegate it. Doing that can have such an impact because all those little things that you're working on have hooks in you. They all got a little energetic hook, and they're all pulling, trying to get your attention. So if you do something like the irritations list, you'll have it written down what's important. You'll probably see that some are more important than others, and some of them may not be a big deal. You may be able to dump them. So that's just a totally pragmatic tool that might be helpful. From the context of paraliminals, there's one that I find really helps people with this. The Soul of Money with Lynn Twist. The subtitle on this is Transform Your Relationship with Money and Life. But what it does is it really it sort of helps you to step into it helps you reprioritize. Lynn Twist's big thing is sufficiency. When have you got enough? When is it enough? We're such accumulators, and so it's a sort of purposeful assessment of where you're at, where you want to be, and where is sufficient, where is adequate. Because sometimes we hold ourselves to such a high standard and we want everything under the sun, and sometimes having it wouldn't even be, because when you have all that stuff, you're in the same boat you're in now, you got too many things to play with. So Soul of Money's been a breakthrough for quite a few people that I've spoken with, where they're just feeling too spread out and too diversified. So that might be one to consider. The self-discipline is helpful because it will help you stay on task with what's important. But as I had mentioned in an earlier Q&A, sometimes the reason you're not getting that goal done is because it's really not important to you. It's somebody else's goal. So, self-discipline for that reason, and also because it will help you stay on target and sort of assess where you're at and whether you're staying on track. And then Success Built to Last, because that one, that was one we did with Stuart Emery, and that one is very good for getting a sense of what you're passionate about, and then it's what you're here to do generally. And so some of these things that seem so important may be very, very peripheral. So, but you can decide on that. And, one of the things that both the self-discipline and the Success Built to Last and the irritations list will help you with is you got a finite amount of energy. So how do you want to spend that? If you got an infinite access, but you got a finite, I guess I should say, you got an infinite energy, infinite access, but there's only so much you can channel, use at a time. So if you have 100 things to do, which ones are really significant, which are going to have the impact? Because, we live in a multitasking world, and a lot of us are always trying to bounce balls or juggle balls. So I think it's about prioritizing. One of the things you might do too is a daily assessment. The reason some people get into a bind is they've got this one goal and they're so tunnel vision and they can't see that peripherally something else is probably more significant. And so when you're doing a daily assessment and measuring things, when you're seeing what your progress has been and whether it's feeling as if you're on track, that might be another pragmatic tool you might do along with that irritations list I mentioned. So that's a few thoughts. As you know, as I say, the paraliminals are so multifaceted and they're so adaptable, and that's why they work so well. So I don't like giving amorphous answers, but I've addressed them to the best of my ability right now. So if there are other specifics that I don't know about, then go through your paraliminals and see which ones and the subtitles seem applicable to what you've got going on in your life. And remember too that if you got things that are time sensitive, you need to have that play in too. Conscious time might be one if that's significant for you, the whole timing thing. So that is all I have to say. That is the questions. So I would encourage you to stay in the love, be the light. Make sure when you open the door, you got that light radiating, and lots of love to you. And we will connect again next week. You take care. Bye-bye.